Hi, I'm Mark Walker. I'm editorial director of the FinTech Times, and we're here at Money20 Europe. I'm going to start off by asking my interviewee to introduce himself to you, the audience.
Thanks. I'm Fahmi Syed. I'm president of the Midnight Foundation.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us here today at Money20. Maybe should we start off a little bit about how this project came about and warm us up with a little bit of the background?
Yeah, absolutely. This originally began as a research project with an input-output. The engineering company behind Cardano, backed by Charles Hoskinson, who was also one of the original CEOs of the Ethereum Foundation and the Ethereum project. Charles was looking at his involvement in blockchain. Why has blockchains and the technology behind it not really seen real-world adoption? Why has the masses not come, the large enterprises not come? Why is still the fiefdom of crypto curious? And so he said, what's missing is identity and privacy. You and I today, we will go around buy a cup of coffee. And that transaction is between you, the vendor, and your bank, and maybe the credit card company. Whereas today, everything on a blockchain is immutable and transparent, which is great, provide great freedom and removes intermediation, but at the same time means everything you do is forever on a chain. And for individuals or large enterprises, the adoption comes from having privacy with disclosures, which we call rational privacy, and also concept of identity and accreditation.
Okay, so let's sort of wheel back a little bit there. And there was a gentleman that I saw present that said to me that cryptocurrency has been the biggest distraction from blockchain there has ever been. And I guess from what you just said, that you kind of concur with that sort of idea, that we got a bit carried away with the meme coins and everything else, and we didn't really get to the real use case of the blockchain.
Yeah. Look, I think the blockchain, in terms of the technology and what Bitcoin introduced to the world, was this idea of decentralized technology, decentralized ledgers, the freedom to share information in a way that you could avoid fraud or double spending because of the transparency. But the result of it has been a lot of crypto coins, crypto tokens, and real adoption in terms of use cases, whether that's banking use cases, logistics, and other sort of enterprise use cases, hasn't really taken off.
Yeah, maybe give us a little bit of an understanding on that sort of taking off. So where does the enhanced privacy layer come in to aid adoption? Why was it needed?
Yes. So if we think about blockchains today, they're either public or private. So private are they're sort of decentralized solutions that the banks are coming up with. But the problem with those are they are siloed. They actually reduce liquidity and interaction with each other. Public, on the other hand, does give you permissionless access, but large enterprises stay away from that because of the AML KYC concerns, not being able to identify who they're interacting with. So what we're trying to introduce at Midnight is a concept of programmable privacy. Our blockchain is neither public nor private. It's not in either camp. We recognize it's not a binary state. There's shades of gray. So we give programmable privacy so individuals can have both a public state, a private state, and selective disclose information around that state to different counterparties.
Okay, so maybe could you give us a kind of a use case for that? Because it sounds pretty straightforward saying programmable privacy, but yes, who would choose the privacy factor and who would decide on what they're comfortable with?
So if we look at the biggest use case around blockchains today, it's around trading, whether it's DeFi or central exchange trading. Now, everything that you trade is on chain, is visible to everybody else. Even the simple act of moving collateral is a signal of your position and your direction. So in the traditional world, and something we think we can bring into Midnight with our programmable privacy, is the ability to hold your assets privately. You issue assets publicly, but you trade and hold them privately. And once you hold them privately, then you will disclose information to counterparts for collateral purposes, for leverage purposes, for borrowing purposes, but also selectively disclose information to your operations team for reconciliations, or to your tax accountant, maybe even regulators.
So I guess for like a layman like myself, we're kind of equating it to a bit like your relationship with a bank, where the bank looks after it and keeps everything private for you. Yeah. But then actually you can choose who you want access to that account. But you've obviously done it in a much more efficient way.
Correct. But in that example you gave, the bank is a centralized actor. Within the blockchain technology that Midnight is offering is the ability to hold that directly, but present it to other parties to show what you have. And the one important thing to note here is the actual data is never on chain. Midnight enables the users to take data off chain or on other chains and present it as a ZK, a zero knowledge proof on the Midnight blockchain.
But effectively, they retain custody of that.
They retain ownership of that data. If we think about all the large corporations in the world today, the Magnificent Seven, they make money predominantly out of our data or data usage, whether it's advertising or investigating that data in order to push more products. And with Midnight, you have the ability to re-own that data and then monetize your own data in a way that you can choose to disclose certain parts of who you are, what you might have.
Yeah. So effectively, you're giving control back to the individual, the consumer, of what they choose to share or not, but in that blockchain network.
Absolutely. So again, taking this core central tenets of what Bitcoin brought to this ecosystem and then enhancing it with this element of programmable privacy. Yes.
Okay. So obviously we talked a little bit about adoption. So what sort of stage are we at the moment? Obviously it's a relatively new project to have started. What are you seeing as the key to sort of mainstream or fast adoption of it?
Yeah. So as I was explaining earlier, this has been a project that's been with an input-output incubated over the last 6 years. Earlier this year, we announced that the Midnight Foundation will be formed, of which I'm the president. And the foundation is responsible for growth in the ecosystem, developer base, partnerships, and looking after the governance of that protocol. We're supported by Shielded Technologies, which is the engineering company going to help us launch the protocol, and then other firms who are coming into that equation. We're seeing adoption in identity, logistics, stablecoins, RWA, just to give you some examples. And RWAs and stablecoins are very thematic trends that we're seeing right now. And we believe the use case of those elements in Midnight enhances them, opens up to large enterprises and large real world adoption.
Yeah. As you say, you picked up there on probably two key themes, real world assets and stable coins, that are really making a lot of moves at the moment and have a lot of adoption going with them. So by utilizing your protocols, you're really extending that and amplifying that adoption rate quickly.
That's correct. So if you think about stablecoins and chains today, all of those transactions are very visible, very transparent. So a large corporation like Coca-Cola is going to use stablecoin rails as they exist today to repatriate revenues from Mexico back into Atlanta, Georgia, where they're headquartered. And if that's the case, you won't see those large adoptions. Now, within Midnight, the stablecoin could be issued publicly. So people see what the characteristics are, see what the TVL is, but more importantly, Coca-Cola can hold that privately and then deliver it and move that privately. So their counterparts like Pepsi Cola aren't looking at their cash flows and going, oh, what's happening in Mexico or in Vietnam? We should be investing into those markets. And that's an important kind of element that Midnight can bring.
Fantastic. And I guess thinking about obviously being here in Amsterdam Money 2020, why have you chosen to come to this event to talk about the project?
So again, we're wanting to talk to adoption beyond just the crypto heartland. So we're present at all of the crypto events and conferences as we launch our protocol later this year. But for us, we also care about the world outside of crypto. Crypto is a very small percentage of transactions in the market, of assets in the market. So coming here, it's about highlighting what Midnight is, what we bring, why we don't see ourselves just as a new blockchain, but as new technology coming into the blockchain industry.
Fantastic. And obviously, as we said earlier, your first experience of Money 2020 Europe.
Yes.
What's your take on the show?
So as I've been walking around, one, it's a great event, a lot of large presence from large enterprises. But what I see a lot of is a lot of payment rails, traditional payment rails. And I think about how you unlock their value using blockchain, how you move away from omnibus type centralized actors to actors who now act as not even intermediaries, as platforms that allow individuals to own their data, own their assets, and use those rails to make efficient transactions.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the reason why you need to be here, because the adoption that you're looking for can only be done by convincing some of these current payment systems to look at a new way of doing things.
That's right. all large enterprises care about two things. Can I put an investment in somewhere which makes me make more revenue, so I can increase my revenues, or can I reduce my costs? Either one leads to greater margins. And with blockchain technology and what we're offering at Midnight, we believe we can offer an ability for people to reduce costs, both in terms of how they handle data and compliance costs around that, and therefore increase potentially their margins and how they operate.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with me here at FinTech Times.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.